G'day guys and welcome back to my channel. So after my last riding video I've had so many comments and messages asking me about carburation settings and how to change it. So today I'm going to show you how to change it, how to set up your carburation to make your bike run smoother. Let's get into it. So guys, carburation, now this is so complicated like suspension. There's so many things that you can change and adjust to make it better, but it can completely change how your bike feels. But it's all down to rider preference. Now there is a general theory that the bike can sometimes be too rich or too lean, but it's your rider preference because some riders like it a bit more rich, some riders like it a bit more lean. It's all down to how you feel on the bike. You need to constantly be reviewing it and adjusting it because if you change altitude, if the temperature changes, the humidity or the air pressure, it can completely change the carburation of your bike. So today I've come with 5 simple tips that you can do to make your carburation better and get your bike feeling a little bit smoother. But side note, any of you guys with a fuel injection, this won't apply to you in any way, so just go and watch another video or something. So guys, this is a pilot jet. Now this will affect the first initial part of your power band. So the first initial bit, you put the throttle on, that's all on the pilot jet. Now I'm running a 45 and that is because I like the first initial part of my power to be really rich and full of fuel, and I use it that way just because I feel like it makes the bike a little bit less aggressive, and I just like it a little bit richer in the bottom end, so I use a 45. But to change that, so the smaller number you use is the leaner the bike will feel, and the bigger number you go is the richer it'll feel. So if I change that and I put 40 or 38 in, the bike would be really skinny in the bottom end, be really aggressive and actually have a touch more power. But like this, the bike is a bit more linear, a bit more smooth, and I find for enduro that's just a bit better. So I'd recommend that you do this first. This is a bigger first tip, and it's really easy to change. All you need to do is loosen off the 2 brackets that hold the carb on so you can just tilt it and get a bit of space. It's just a little flathead screwdriver and that pops straight out. So to put it back in, there's a little groove in there. You can see where the bolt sits into. If you push it up in there, get your screwdriver on it. But don't do it too tight because I've actually seen a few riders like completely thread that, so just watch for that. And make sure all these are nice and clean and dry when you put them back in, because if there's any grit or anything in there, it will really affect your bike. So screw that back on. But guys, remember when you're putting it back in, after you've obviously had the carb tilted, just watch the throttle cable hasn't been nicked underneath there, because if it has, it's a really high risk of the throttle actually jamming on the next time you go riding. So just make sure that's all nice and clean and straight through up there, so it's not catching on anything, and you'll be good to go. So guys, tip number 2 is the needle setting, and this is what a lot of people forget. They generally change the pilot jet and the main jet, but the needle jet, they very rarely change. So the needle will affect the middle part of the power band. So if I just get it out now, you pull it out and you'll see it's still on the slide. If you pull the spring up, and then all you need is a 6mm, get that undone, pull that out, and that is your needle. So like I said, the needle will affect the middle part of the power, and so this is so massively important because you spend so much time when you're riding in that middle part of the power band. So the higher letter you go, the leaner it is. If you want it richer, the lower letter you go, the richer the bike will be. But like I said, it's really simple to change, and I really suggest having a look not only what's inside your bike, but maybe even adjusting it, because it makes a massive difference, believe me. And that leads nicely into tip number 3, which is the clip setting. Now this is still on the needle. As you can see at the top of there, there's 5 little grooves on top of the needle where the clip will sit. Now if you change the needle 1 letter, 2 letters, it makes a massive difference to your carburation settings. So the clip is there, which adjusts the height of the needle, how high it actually sits inside the carb, and that will make smaller adjustments. So the higher the clip is on the needle, the leaner your bike will feel, and the lower it is, the richer it will feel. So there is 5 grooves, but normally we'd only use the 2nd, 3rd or 4th. And if ever we had to go on the 1st or 5th, we'd normally change the needle at that point. So guys, it's really simple to change. All you need to do is have a set of pliers and just pull that clip off. Nice and simple. Just watch you don't lose that, because I've seen many guys do that in a race. So your 1st, your 2nd, wherever you want to put it, we'll put it on the 3rd now. You just clip it on, you'll hear it click. And now to put it back in the bike, it's really simple. All you need to do is get the slide and just put that down through the middle, push that down, get the little bolt, put it in, And be careful not to do this too tight as well. All the carburation bolts, they don't really need to be that tight. Now you go down and you get your throttle cable, put your spring over the top with the plastic bit on the end, and you'll see on the plastic, you see there's a little groove in there. Now when that goes in, that'll sit inside that little gap and that will stop the throttle cable from jumping out on you when you're riding. If you just fold the spring up like that, just so you've got enough space just to grab the end of the throttle cable, put that down in that gap like you said, you'll feel it tug on the bottom, and then the little plastic knuckle on the end of there goes down in that gap, and that is your slide back on your cable. So tip number 4 is main jet. Now this is a nice one to change because it's the easiest one to change and it's the easiest one to see if it's right or wrong. So I'll just get my bike outside now and show you how it should sound when your main jet is set properly. So this is how the bike should sound, but bear in mind I do like the bike to be a bit richer than normal. And having the bike set like that with the main jet means that it's just a bit safer for the longer races. You know, if you're stuck on an uphill, if you're in the mud and you're revving the bike loads, you know, there's less chance of you breaking an engine. So now I'll make the bike really, really rich and I'll show you how it shouldn't sound. And so now I've changed the main jet, I've gone way, way too rich just to show you how it shouldn't sound. So guys, that was way too rich, but just to show you that only going up 2 jet sizes can make a massive difference, so you should definitely check what's in your bike. Now I'll show you what it's like when it's too lean. So I've just put a smaller jet in. I haven't gone too far because I don't want to break my bike, but this is just to show you what it shouldn't sound like, or if it's a bit too skinny. So as you can hear then, as soon as I rev it, it just picks up straight away and goes way too high. And that's when you're at risk of detonation of the engine, so try to avoid that if you can. So guys, this is what a main jet looks like, and the higher number is the richer the jet is and how your bike will feel. So the lower number will make it leaner, and this is how you change it. So what you need to do is just open up the carb again with the flat screwdriver and tilt it, and it's sort of the same process as when you were changing the pilot jet. So get this open. So as we changed before, the pilot jet is on one side, inside a little recess, and the main jet is the one sticking further out. It's more square at the bottom. So 6mm and it comes straight out. So all you need to do is get your new jet, and when I put it in, I like to just blow through it, and you'll hear the air go straight through, and it just makes sure that it's nice and clean. Now putting it back in is a bit fiddly, and it's really, really delicate. So I like to do the first few turns just with my fingers, just to make sure that I don't damage the thread. And then you get your 6mm spanner and just tighten it up. Like I said before, it doesn't need to be very tight. These are really, really delicate. And that is your main jet done. So guys, tip number 5 is all about the air screw, and that is your air to fuel mixture. So if you don't know, the air screw is a little gold screw right down there, which adjusts obviously how much air is getting into it and mixing with the fuel. So to change it, if you turn it clockwise and close the air screw, that's making it richer because there's not as much air mixing with the fuel. On the other hand, if you open it, turn it anti-clockwise, that's opening a screw, more air is getting in, mixing with the fuel, making the bike leaner. And now I'll show you how that affects the bike. So to adjust the air screw, what you want to do is make sure your bike's nice and warm, and then turn the tick over up so it's nice and constant on its own. So that's a normal tick over. So I've turned my tick over up. As you can see, it's nice and constant now on its own. I'm not touching the bike at all. And now I'll show you how to adjust the air screw. So if you want to make the bike richer, you'll close the screw. Can you hear how much richer that bike is now? Because there's less air getting to the fuel. Now that's back where I had it. You see how much of a difference it makes? Now guys, be really, really careful with this. You only need to change it half a turn at a time, because half a turn, trust me, will make a massive, massive difference in your risk of breaking your bike if you do it wrong. So half a turn, 1 turn at a time, and you'll be good to go. And now this is what it'll sound like if it's too skinny. So I've just adjusted it now, I've opened up the screw. Can you hear how much it's revving more freely? That's because I've made the bike skinny. I've let more air get in to mix with the fuel, so now the bike is skinny. But guys, obviously this is way too skinny for enduro, so I'll put it back to how it was. Ideally, that is how you want it to sound. So it's not revving too deep, as if it's too rich, but it's not revving like ding 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 where it's too skinny, and that's when you're at risk of breaking your bike. So like that, I feel it's perfect. The engine is getting a perfect mix of air and fuel, and you should be good to go. So guys, that is the 5 basic tips for setting up your carburation on your bike. But the most important thing, and please remember, is just to stay on top of it. You need to constantly be adjusting it and changing it depending on where you're riding, what track it is, the conditions of the track. If it's sand, obviously you want to jet it a lot richer. And also another 2 massive factors in how your carburation will feel is temperature and altitude. So temperature, now a lot of people don't think of it as affecting your carburation, but anywhere between 4 and 5 degrees Celsius of temperature change will completely affect how your bike runs. And it's exactly the same with altitude as well. Lots of different tracks are at different altitude, so the higher you go in altitude, you need to jet it down to compensate for it. And it's the same the other way. If you go down to sea level, you need to jet it up to compensate. So guys, that is carburation settings in a nutshell. I hope you liked the video, and I hope you learned something as well. Let me know in the comments below if you need any more help or how you get on using my tips. If you like the video, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!